Hello and welcome to our last video in this free video course on how to double your tips. Today we're talking the 6 most common mistakes that tour guides, tour operators make when talking tips. Hi, Kelsey Toner here from beabetterguide.com. All right, let's dive right in. Here are the top things not to do when asking for tips. Do not use guilt trips and do not try to make people feel sorry for you. This makes awkward situations and it falls into the negative experience category. You do not want your guests to have negative experiences on your tour. So any sort of like really high pressure situation or one where you're just a sob story where you barely have enough money to feed your family, your home, these sorts of things. Anything that you do, and lots of guides do this in subtle ways too that I don't recommend. When just saying like, I don't make very much in wages, so if you had a great time, please, gratuities are really needed, something along those lines. Just cut it all out. You want your guests to have an awesome experience on your tour. You want it to be a positive experience overall. Don't badmouth your company, especially in front of guests. You can badmouth your company in your own time, I guess. But definitely don't do this in front of your guests. And people will do it as a way to, a bit like the previous one, maybe create a bit of a sob story or being like, our employer hardly pays us anything. Or, we don't get any kind of benefits or anything like that. If you are working for a company, you've got to take that really seriously and that you're the face of that company. You've got to represent them. If they find out that you're bad-mouthing them anyway, and that stuff does tend to come around. Like, I think many of the people who come on these tours are business owners themselves. And if they see an employee sort of bad-mouthing a boss like that, they might feel like, I really have to let that employer know that this employee is way out of line. So that stuff can come around and bite you in the butt. Do not badmouth your employer. And if you really hate your employer, then leave and become an awesome independent guide. Do not bring up tips or tipping over and over again. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of a tipping speech, but you'll notice I've only mentioned 2 times when I think that should happen, at the beginning and a quick reminder right before the end. Do not harp on tips and bring it up over and over and over again, throughout your tour, especially on a longer tour. If you keep bringing up over and over, people are going to pick that up, that you're really just sort of digging for tips. You don't want to do this. And you might ultimately decide that, hey, I'll put some great tipping literature in the pre-documentation and maybe only say it once. Maybe I just like having the tip speech at the beginning or just at the end. If you want to cut it down, that's fine, but don't go above mentioning it twice. And especially on shorter tours, it's not going to reflect well. Don't get bitter if someone doesn't tip. And certainly don't single anybody out. This is super important. There's lots of reasons that somebody may not tip you. They may not have any cash on them. They may not be able to afford it. They may just not be in that sort of income bracket. It may not be part of their culture. They may not have loved your tour. You can't please everybody. That's a reality you've got to face. Maybe somebody just didn't like the tour that you gave. Or 2, lastly, maybe they don't even speak your language. Maybe they're just like along for the ride. And that sometimes happens when people come on your tour and then you start to realize that they don't actually speak the language that the tour is in. So there are many reasons why somebody may not tip you. Don't get bitter about this and don't fixate on it, certainly. Tips, you should really believe what you're saying in your tip speech, that, hey, tipping is not mandatory, but it's warmly welcomed. Don't forget to thank people when they do tip. Saying thank you and expressing your gratitude when somebody gives a tip is very, very, very important. Do not forget this at all, especially with that sort of box system or an envelope. If you're not present or you're dealing with somebody, be sure to give like a nod or like a thank you at the very least if you're tied up and you see that someone's giving you a gratuity. You also definitely want to think about, if you're not doing it already, having some sort of thank you email that goes out. So this might be arranged through your company, or if you're an independent guide, we can talk about the automated systems to set it up. So send out a thank you email after the tour. And there's tons of reasons why you want to do this. You can have the added value, so you're sending them something like the links or maybe a cool handout or something. 2, you're asking for feedback. That's one of the most important parts, right? So individual feedback for you, how you can give a better tour, what they loved, what they didn't love. 3, it's also a great way that they now have your contact information or your company information, so they can quickly share that with their friends because it's in their email box there. So thank you email, definitely a way to go, and thanking in person for any gratuities you receive. Do not think that these tips on earning more gratuities will work if you give a shabby tour and you're a rotten tour guide. Let's face it and come back to the loop to the beginning here again. You should be focused not on your tips, but on being an incredible tour guide. A tour guide who delivers knock your socks off service, who is individualized, customized the tour for every person that came on it. It was funny, charismatic, incredible, and that the type of experience that you gave is something that they're going to remember 10 years down the road. That's what I like to think about. So someone can look back and say, do you remember that tour guide we had on the Dalmatian coast? What was that, like 8 years ago? Gosh, that was incredible. And remember how we did that thing, right? That's what you want to focus on. This whole course has been focused on how you can maximize your gratuities, but let's face it, the best way that you can maximize your gratuities is becoming an incredible tour leader. And that's what we do at beabetterguide.com. I'm so glad that you found this course. And why not join that community so you can become that extraordinary tour leader? But wait, I know what you're thinking. Oh gosh, this is a pretty good course. Maybe we should give a gratuity to Kelsey. Yeah, I know that literally like none of you were thinking that at that moment. But if you did enjoy this course and think you got some value, there's 3 things that you can do for me. One is, of course, join the Be a Better Guide community. If you signed up for this course with your email, hey, you're already in and you're on our VIP newsletter. So approximately every week, I'll try and send out some free training just for you. If you haven't signed up, there's a link below to join the community. 2, you can give us some love on Facebook. Facebook is super important these days, and there's tons of tour guides, tour operators on Facebook. I'd love to connect with them that way. And lastly, of course, if you want to share this video course with somebody, I'll put the link below, and if you can share that link, it'll allow anyone that you know that you think might get some value from this course to get it. I also did want to let you know that I do accept, Rolexes, jewelry, things of that nature. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. I do hope you learned something and had a bit of fun. See you next time.